Hello to all the participants. At the very outset, warm greetings of the day. I'm Shilpa BSL, working as an assistant professor in Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies, affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University. I'm also pursuing my PhD from University of Delhi, and I've co-authored a chapter for a Routledge publication. I've also presented a number of papers in many international conferences. Prior to my teaching experience, I've worked as a technical writer for Emphasis, an IT firm. Today, I'll be taking you through the presentation, content development and introduction, meaning, need, and features of effective content. At the end of this presentation, you will be able to describe content in the learning context, outline different media formats used to provide content, and list down features of effective content. So let's get started. Have you ever learned how to do something from a YouTube video? Have you ever found an answer to your question from Wikipedia or a printed article? Have you ever fixed a problem by looking at an image from a software manual, online or offline? If you have, then you have used different kinds of content, such as video content, textual content, and images for your learning. But first things first, what does content mean in the context of learning? Content in an educational context is a broad term that is loosely used to refer to any learning resources that educators create for their learners to achieve their learning goals. It may include information, concepts, and experiences that educators create to give to their learners. The term is applied to anything as small as a single activity or an exercise, as to a topic or a collection of topics, as in a lesson, and can also be applied to as large as that of an entire course. There are different media to deliver the content. As a 21st century educator, we have multiple media options through which we can choose to deliver content to our learners. Let us take a look at some of the popular media formats through which you can give your content to your learners. The first one is audio content. You can choose to give your content using an audio narration. Such a format may be helpful for learners who are busy professionals and possibly are pressed for time. So learning content in an audio narration like that of an academic podcast can help them learn while they travel or multitask. However, don't forget to provide a text alternative for those learners who may have hearing disabilities. Then, you may choose to record a video presentation to deliver your content. Videos are helpful to deliver both conceptual information and for demonstrations of mechanical procedures. They're richer than the audio narration as they can capture the textual matter through a presentation and also the facial expressions of the presenter as it is doing here. So it gives a near classroom experience. Further, you may choose the most widely used medium of written texts, as in the case of much of traditional methods of content delivery. In addition, you may also have the option of using graphics, such as still photographs, pictures, illustrations, graphs, or diagrams. Graphics can be effective in educational fields where visualization is an important part of learning, as in the field of computer and software education, technical education such as engineering, or even in medical field. Then you may also use an animation which includes moving graphics. An example where animation could be helpful would be a course about manufacturing process. A moving graphics could stimulate the flow through the different production departments, graphically demonstrating the production process for the students. Or you could create a multimedia content constituting of all of these components or some of these components, such as audio, video, graphics, and textual media. According to content researchers, the cognitive processes among learners is better when content uses multimedia. This is because an individual learns more deeply when he or she builds connection between the verbal representation and a pictorial representation of the same material. So these are some of the most important and widely used media formats to deliver content by content developers. Content development, what is in it for me? John C. Maxwell said, find your why and you'll find your way. Let's look at why content development is important for you as an educator. Professional profile and visibility. Content creation helps you build your professional profile and visibility. The curriculum vitae of a 21st century educator is no longer weighed only on his influence within the confines of his classroom, but rather on his or her ability to reach out to learners beyond his physical sphere. How else to reach to those learners who stay far beyond your classrooms other than content that you create? In addition, content creation can act as a form of networking to build professional relationships outside one's own local context. Further, content creation and consumption is a great way to share and learn new ideas from other educators. And finally, content creation can be a powerful means to professional self reflection. After all, teaching is a reflective practice. So, content creation makes us introspect of the relevance of the knowledge that we have and also the way we deliver it to our students. So, you might wonder, okay, content creation may help me professionally, but is there a need for content creation in the first place? Let's take a look. Is there a need for content creation in the first place? Surprisingly, there is an ever growing demand for content. Find out why. Alvin Toffler, a futurist, had predicted in 1970 in his famous work, Future Shock, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Look around us and you will realize that the world is all about learn, unlearn, and relearn. Imagine the tax consultant who continuously learns to adapt to the changing rules of taxation and moves from one regime to another, sometimes overnight. Think of the doctors who continuously learn a new procedure of surgery and treatment every second year. Think of the millennial generation who have quickly learned to continuously learn new skills. Why go anywhere else? Think about yourselves. How much of what you've learned in your college is still relevant in the current sphere of work? How many times have you had to upgrade your skills? And how many times did you depend on content to learn? So, indeed, content is the new fuel that engines the knowledge society that we live in. But ironically, although there is an explosion of information happening, yet people lack relevant content that cuts through the clutter, right? So, what is lacking is relevant content that cuts through the clutter. So, the point is that content that is effective is what people demand. So, how then do we create content for learning. How then do we create effective content for learning? As Dan Brown says, sometimes change of perspective is all it takes to see the light. Yeah, true. For educators who want to create great content, think about their course differently. Let us see how they approach content. Typically, when we think of our courses as what we teach, instead, if we alter our perspective as to what the learners in the course will learn, we facilitate the content design and development process tremendously. Robin M. Smith, a content expert, has a useful mantra for all educators in content development. And what is that? He says, think learning, not teaching. If you have to think learning and not teaching, then you have to put yourselves in the learner's shoes. So let's take the next 10 seconds and make a small mental list of what you as a learner would look for in the content. Your time starts now. What does your list look like? You probably would want the best match for your subject at hand. You probably don't want to read 30 articles. Instead, you'd like to find just a few of the facts you need presented clearly. You probably would like quick loading information. If you have to wait more than 5 or 10 seconds for a page to load, you might abandon that site for a different one. You would also want clear and precise information with images to confirm you've identified things appropriately or are correctly going about the steps to a new task. You probably would want inbuilt checks or verifications along the way in a project so that you don't want to get to the end of the 16th step process and find out you did something wrong in step 2. You want to know on step 2 whether you're right before proceeding to the next step. You probably want few to no time wasters because time wasters are after all frustrating and preventable. So, what principles of content can we deduct from your list of expectations? Most good content has the most appropriate subject matter. Content that is well organized and presented in most logical, clear, and precise manner is any day more preferable than the content that is not. Content files and formats that are easily accessible for learners trying to access is always better than those files that are very heavy and difficult to load. And probably you want uh, appropriate images that quickly reconfirm the appropriateness of the subject matter. And then you would perhaps look for inbuilt and timely evaluation so that you are sure that you're going on the right direction. And and you would not want any distractions and time wasters. So these are some of the features of the good content, right? And as John Franklin says, simplicity carried to an extreme becomes elegance. Same lies with good content. These features that look so commonplace, that looks like so simple, yet when they are carried to an extreme, then what you get out of it is great content. So that is so so I guess by now we know what great content looks like. Thank you.